everyone, and welcome to Let's Pod This. My name's Andy Moore, and I'm joined this week by Scott Nelson, as always.
What's up, man? How are you?
Good to see you again.
That's
we
right.
recorded yesterday, so this is twice. Stephen Tyler from Waffy Show and Mostly Harmless Media.
Hello.
And our featured guest, Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Thanks
Appreciate
for joining
it.
us.
Yeah.
So we are recording this live at Missy's Donuts in Guthrie at the original location on Wentz Street. We were just talking that there are now multiple locations out there. They figured out how to franchise this model, and that's good for them and good for us. It means more delicious donuts. So.
Yeah, one of the best donut spots in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Drinking out of my I love Grandpa coffee mug.
Nice.
So.
We'll get a photo of that later for the website.
Yes, we better.
Cheers
Cheers
to everybody. Mr. Lieutenant Governor, thanks again for joining us. You were just saying that life is a lot busier now. Is it busier than you expected coming in?
You know, I think it is. I knew to some degree what I was getting myself into, which probably makes me even crazier knowing that, I'm not sure the governor knew what he was getting himself into. True outsider, no doubt about it.
Right.
But I've been involved in politics. I've been down at the state capitol quite a bit, but it's busier. I think I can say that it is busier these first few months than I expected. Some of that may just be we're really excited about being in office,
right?
And so we kind of came out pretty hot to trot on this thing, and which is good. We actually like the job.
That's always a plus.
I'm passionate about being lieutenant governor. So we stay very busy. Once we're out of legislative session, I'm not sure what the schedule looks like, how many days we're in Oklahoma City versus how many days we're on the road.
Right.
With my additional role as Secretary of Tourism, I think I'll be pretty busy hitting different state parks and tourist attractions around the state.
Well, the last time you joined us when you were, during the campaign, you were running for Lieutenant Governor, and I think you joked there that if they would just give you an Airstream trailer, and you could just tour the state and show it off, and I feel like you've kind of been doing that.
I have, not in an RV yet, but the new executive director we just hired at the tourism department, Jerry Winchester, has a huge RV, and I told him I'm going to need to use that.
Yeah.
So you may see that out on the road sometime this year.
Didn't somebody else have maybe it was McCain? Somebody had a bus or
Straight
RV?
Talk Express.
That's it. Yeah.
Straight Talk
That's
Express
it.
in 2008.
Yeah.
So, Lieutenant Governor, you mentioned you kind of had some idea of what to expect because you have worked in politics around the Capitol for a while. Most of your prior experience though has been working within like the party structure, the party apparatus, right?
Yes.
What has been the biggest difference? Like how do you have to kind of change your mindset working and as an elected office rather than kind of within the party structure?
Well, you do in that, we have great relationships with Democrats and Republicans. And I've developed those over the years. But when you're down at the Capitol and you're trying to get stuff done, you got to work with Republicans, Democrats, and independents. That's how it works.
Right.
Put legislation together that hopefully you can have some consensus on, compromise. Some of those things have kind of been lost at the national level that trickle down into the state level at times. We've seen that in Oklahoma. I can tell you the working relationship that I have with a lot of members on both sides of the aisle. I'm a Republican, but I have a lot of good relationships with Democrats. Some of this is kind of birthed out of kind of my vision for the Lieutenant Governor office. I grew up an arts kid in the performing arts. Huge supporter of the arts, huge supporter of film and TV and tourist attractions, quality of life, trails, museums. And a lot of times Republicans don't talk about those issues. Mm-hmm. I plan on it because I know that is but not only am I passionate about them and support those issues, but they're big economic development drivers for communities. I mean, that's what employees demand today, and they should demand those things. And when they demand them, those things do end up happening and coming to communities. It's what we're trying to make sure is that it's not just Tulsa and Oklahoma City. What's going on in Guthrie, I mean, it's one of the more unique cities in the entire country. I mean, I just love Guthrie. And so I'm glad we're doing this right here. But we got 77 counties.
Sure.
And we have to make sure that we're helping some of those communities that do need help.
Outstanding. You've been on social media a lot talking about like kind of what's going on in Guthrie and the different, the economic kind of revival maybe that's kind of happening here. Can you talk a little bit about Durant as well? Durant was in the running for it. Was like what was the actual contest?
Yeah, so it was a TV show, and it got down to
I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, so it got down between Durant and I believe it was Conway, Arkansas, which don't know if I've ever been to Conway. Maybe it's a cute little
great
town.
Physical therapy school there.
Oh well, there you
go.
Get your doctorate.
There you go. Want to get your doctorate in physical therapy? You can go to Conway, Arkansas.
Things to know. Well, and I'm sad to say that we lost to Conway, Arkansas, but Durant, I've always believed and still do believe, and it's going to happen. Location, just with Durant right there, butting up to the nation of Texas, as they refer to themselves, 28 million people down there today.
That's right.
There's their location to Texas. They should be developing a lot of economic development in the town of Durant, and they're starting to. I mean, they're starting to pull in a whole lot of business from Texas. Clearly, the gaming operation down there in Durant has been rocking and rolling for a number of years. But they're getting much more diversified in Durant. And so it got down to Durant and like I said, this town in Arkansas. But for a good number of months, the governor and I and others were pushing to make sure that people knew to go vote for Durant. But yeah, Durant's a great example of a town that, you've got Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Lawton, Enid, are some of the towns that certainly people always talk about outside of the Tulsa and Oklahoma City area. Broken Arrow, Oklahoma is like the fourth largest city in the state now. I mean, they're almost bigger than Norman. And so some of those suburbs around Tulsa and Oklahoma City are now becoming some of the largest cities in the state. Again, north, south, east, west, we've got to do a better job of making sure we're developing the state as a whole.
Right. So I think there was an article this week from strongtowns.com,
yes,
I think.
Great website. Yeah.
And it kind of talked about how I think cities, but I think this applies to the whole state, need to invest not just in attracting outside tourists, but in investing in what you said, quality of life things. How do we strike that balance in Oklahoma?
Well, it's a balance. Every governor always talks about crisscrossing the country and bringing people to the state of Oklahoma. And we're going to do that. I mean, we're going to hit some home runs. The governor and I have already done a number of trips. My trips are more on the investment side. I'm going to other states bringing investment dollars, particularly with these opportunity zones that we have in the state, which is a big play, a bigger play than people realize. That there's some people on the coast that will not move to the middle of the country, but they will bring their money from the coasts and put it into investment opportunities across states like Oklahoma, and we've got to be taking more advantage of that. But it is a balance on building things, structures. I'm a Tulsa guy, and it is one of our larger premier cities, but they've seen, the George Kaiser Family Foundation, and thank you for doing it. They built the world's largest park. Yeah. If you haven't seen the Gathering Place, you need to go check it out. And one of the reasons they built it for a number of reasons. It truly is a gathering place for all Tulsans and all Oklahomans, hopefully. But they also knew that it's a retention tool. I mean, it keeps people in that community, young talent, and it lures. I mean, that's where the chamber, that's where any employer, if they're trying to lure an orthopedic surgeon and his or her family to Tulsa, that's the first stop that they take people now is, let's go see the country's best park. In Tulsa, Oklahoma? Yes, it is. It's right there. And so I think people are starting to realize that. The Walton Family Foundation is also the other example that I use. They mandate in Bentonville, Arkansas, that their vendors live close to Walmart, headquarters. But they're not going to stay there. I mean, the Walton Family Foundation and Walmart realized those employers are not going to be happy if there was not quality of life things to do in the Bentonville area. So they went out and they built the world's best trail system. Mm-hmm. If you've been to Bentonville, they're the world's best mountain bike trail system, really in the entire country. And of course, we all know about Crystal Bridges now, one of the best museums. We have better museums than Crystal Bridges, and it's across the state of Oklahoma. But they do a really good job of promoting it. And so we've begun to have that conversation. We're getting a lot of momentum behind it. It's on both sides of the aisle, people wanting to support that kind of movement in the state, and we're going to help fast track it.
Yeah. That article that Andy referred to, like one of the key things it talked about was like at this pivotal point where we're all getting hyped up about something, we're building, we're investing, the locals are getting engaged on it, and there's a moment where we kind of make a decision: are we building this to attract outside people? Are we building this for the people that live here? And it seems like sometimes you want to build to attract that attention, but the point of the article is saying, like, if you build it for people that live here, then as a result, everybody else wants to come. And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and they're like, yeah, that's the thing. Like, when I want to go to Bentonville, and I went there, and like with a ULI tour, and like I get there, and I'm like, this is a strange city. You can tell it's been engineered a certain way. Like, it is almost like, it feels almost like a Pleasantville type thing. Like, somebody built this facade for some reason. What is it? But you find that it's fairly genuine. Like, that's where Walmart started. That's their home. Yeah. Oh, there's the original Walmart store, and you can go in there and it looks like the originals. On the point of that to say is, like, how do we prevent ourselves from taking that misstep? Because, like, when I go to these places, my first thought is, what restaurant should I go? And I'm not going to, like, look at TripAdvisor for that.
Yes.
I'm going to, like, go to the lady behind the counter at the corner store, like, where do you go eat lunch?
Right.
Like, I want to know, because that's the thing people want, is where do the locals go?
Yeah, and in Bentonville, they did build organically. Now, again, they had a major corporation that was helping them build organically.
Yeah.
I've always thought we can be top 10 everywhere eventually, but with tourism, we can be top 10 pretty quick. And it's because, again, the charm that we have across our 77 counties, because of our people, the people that are already here that make this state great. When you do get people off roads and bridges and they start asking the lady behind the counter those type of questions, they start falling in love with this state pretty quick. And we have to make sure that we do protect that. We protect that as a state. That a lot of this growth, that, again, we make sure that businesses that are here now, that have chosen to raise their families here, that we are asking them the questions first. What are you happy with? What are you not happy about in state government? Because those are the things that I can help control. Yes, we're going to go around the country and try to bring in and hit some home runs, but I want to hit singles and doubles. If we hit a bunch of singles and doubles and help, growing our manufacturing base, growing our aerospace base, and just helping these smaller companies, hire one more person, two more people, then we build it the right way. And I think naturally that's what most of the time is what's going to happen in the state of Oklahoma. I'd love to build the new Amazon headquarters, in Stroud between Tulsa and Oklahoma City, right? On the old the Tanger Outlet Mall. Yeah. Sure, hey, they can build their own city if they want. Right. Is that realistic? I don't know how realistic it is, but I know that I can spend a lot of time in Guthrie, America. And because it's one of the most unique and just so much pride here, that we can build this community the right way. And that's what we want to do across 77 counties.
Sure. That's the Moneyball approach to tourism, right?
Great. I mean, really great analogy. Yeah.
So, and I think it does come back to this kind of tension that we've been talking around, where there's like bringing outside people in versus making it livable for the people that's here. KGOU put out an article this week that's focused on a study that looked at kind of what the population change pattern has been in Oklahoma over the last 20 years or so. And what they found is that actually people with college degrees were losing.
Yes.
And so I'm curious, what do you think, what are some concrete things that, well, A, what do you think is driving that?
Yeah.
And B, what are some concrete things that we can be doing to try and have those people, the people that grow up in, Guthrie or Enid or Tulsa or Oklahoma City or whatever, and they come and they're here, they go to OSU, or maybe they leave the state for college, but then want to come back and make their family here. What do we do to keep those people here?
Yeah, I read the same article yesterday. Not the kind of headlines that you want as a state, saying that Oklahoma is still bleeding college graduates. I think that was the headline.
Yeah, it was.
I didn't tweet that one out. But it's true. And so we still do have a brain drain problem in Oklahoma. I think some of it, certainly, we're not diversified enough as a state. We're still way too oil and gas dependent. And we're going to continue to be an oil and gas state.
Sure.
I want to make sure that we're an oil and gas state. But the oil and gas industry, and I've told them this, we need to make sure that we're much more diversified, because when we don't have money at the state capitol, we just go back to the oil and gas industry for a check. And so they want to be diversified too. Arkansas is much more diversified because they don't have the rock we have to frack. They would like to have it, but they don't have it, so they're much more diversified. So we have got to make sure that, and that's why I'm so into entrepreneurship and small business growth, because I believe that we foster a much better environment for entrepreneurs, then we'll keep more of those kids that are graduating from OU and OSUs here in the state. Also, some of those growing industries, digital manufacturing, the coding jobs, we have to make sure that kids that are graduating from OU and OSU are graduating with the kind of degrees that meet the demands of the workforce. That's also a big issue that we have. It's why I'm such a believer in career tech. We have probably the best career tech infrastructure in the entire country. It's us in Georgia.
Right.
Any site relocation firm will tell you that. So we are top 10 in a good area. That's the breaking news on the podcast this morning. So if we are top 10 in career tech, we got to double down on it. So it's getting into middle schools now. Juniors and seniors in high school, it's almost too late. We'll do that too. Sure. But getting into middle schools and making sure that kids know they have other routes to go. And I'm not just talking about plumbing and electricians and carpentry, which those are important too.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's time for a cultural shift in this country where we stop demonizing kids that go vocational routes.
Yeah.
And if we do that, then I think you'll also keep more kids in the state. Those kids that are graduating with engineer degrees, though, and leave the state, it worries me because Tinker could hire every engineer in the state, right? And they would still need to hire thousands more. They talk about software engineers that Tinker needs, thousands.
Yeah.
I mean, potentially we're getting to a point where it's tens of thousands of software engineers. But it's, you got this on the military basis, but you have it in the private sector too. So it is an issue for us. It's an issue for every state, but when Oklahoma's getting those kind of headlines, those are the kind of headlines that we have to help change. I think career tech is part of it. I think it's making sure that we're much smarter with degrees in our higher education facilities, and making sure that when we're doing those, when higher ed is doing those things and making those needed changes, that at the state capitol, we're passing legislation and we're helping the private sector continue to diversify.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you think, some of my friends that work in tech, software engineers, other IT specialists that may have worked at the university, have left, they'll stay a couple of years as their first job, and then they'll leave and go out of state because they will make a multiple more money, right? Everyone knows the cost of living is low, but that it only placates for so long. So how do we rectify that?
Certainly, and it's a private sector issue in some ways, is that from a competitive salary perspective, we do have to get there. I will say one of the things that is changing, particularly again in the Tulsa and the Oklahoma City area, kids graduating today that they can't make the comment anymore. Well, I'm going to Kansas City because Kansas City has an art scene, and Oklahoma City doesn't.
Right.
Or Tulsa doesn't. I think it's getting much more difficult for them to say that. And those are things that will keep more of those kids here. It just will. We know it in Oklahoma City with Tower Theater and everything else that we have. Some of the best restaurants in the country now, some of the best art scene in the country. So we can sell that to those kids that have a job offer in Austin, in a tech company, or a tech company has offered them in Oklahoma City, maybe for a little bit less money, but yes, better quality of life. It doesn't take you 2 hours to get to and from work, which it will in Austin, Texas.
That's one of those things you don't appreciate until you do it.
You don't.
And you're like, oh,
you don't. And when you're single,
Right.
And you're wanting to maybe get away for a while, I still think I can make an argument of why you need to stay in Oklahoma.
Sure.
But they realize it pretty quick when they go to those cities nowadays with that kind of traffic.
We actually recently hired, right at the beginning of the year, we hired a digital marketing coordinator. And we were a little concerned because our business level at Tower Theater, we're like, oh, we can't really pay the salary we would want to pay and get that kind of caliber. And we put the job out there anyways, and we ended up hiring a guy from Austin. We actually stole him from the Austin Theater Alliance that runs the Paramount and Stateside Theater, and also the two prime historic theaters right in the middle of Austin. And he found our job description and was like, now granted, he was an Oklahoma City kid who had moved down there to lure, but a few years into it, he's like, I just want to come home.
Yeah.
And then when he found out what we were doing, is like, oh, now there's that thing I left for is now literally down the street from where I used to live. And we were paying him less than he was making down there, but obviously cost of living helps. But he came back because of that, and he's since then like, this is the best decision I've made in a long time, because now I'm home and I don't have to drive 2 hours and I don't have to deal with this and that.
I mean, that's a perfect story that now I can go tell around the state.
And it's digital. It's our social media group. Like, it's that weird high-level tech job that a lot of companies and businesses need right now. They don't even realize they need it. Because that's the new information dissemination system out there. Like, if you're not great on those social media channels, it can make or break your business.
And I would say, too, he will be able to start paying these people more if we create more private sector jobs in the state. I mean, if there's more people in the state, that means there's going to be more people spending money down at Tower Theater, right? And the more money we spend places, again, the more flexibility employers have to raise salaries. And there's 28 million people down in Texas today. We have 4 million. So there you go. Okay? I mean, it's a numbers game when it comes to, again, those private sector jobs. And so we've got to go the right direction. We can't keep hovering around 3.8, 3.9. We're under 4 million. We can't be losing congressional seats. We have to be picking up congressional seats. And the only way that happens is if we create more private sector jobs in this state.
I'm not saying we're a genius, but we did structure his salary in such a way that's like he will get incentives based on higher level ticket sales.
Perfect.
So like, as our own business grows, as he does a better job, it's like every time a show sells out, he'll get an incentive. So we couldn't pay the base, but we're like, but we know eventually there's going to be more money, and this is how you're going to get access. So I think there's some of that too.
When you go around the country and like you're marketing, you're branding, you're selling Oklahoma, what does that look like? And so I got an example from our family. We've got a cousin, one of my wife's cousins, who's from the Chicago area. He's got a skill set. He's got a degree. He was at a young company and was recently laid off, which happens sometimes. And he's looking for somewhere to move. And he visited some family in Dallas. He visited some family in Colorado. He's been through Oklahoma City, and he's pretty much said, like, I almost even care what I do. I want to live in Denver. I want to, he's got a list of like 3 or 4 cities that like, I'll go there, take a job, and drive Uber if I have to make it work, because that's the place that I want to be. Going around the country, who do you talk to, and what do you tell them to convince them that like, no, Oklahoma City is that place, or Tulsa is that place, like, or pick one of the great places we have in Oklahoma to live.
So in my previous job, when I was the National State Party Director for the RNC, I worked in all 50 states. And I was kind of insulated from the politics of it. It was my job to go in and like rebuild state parties. So I was extremely blessed in that, I didn't have to be in a whole lot of political foxholes when I was going into these states. It was my job to go and help them raise money, help them put political plans together, comms plans. But when I would do that, I would do a lot of public speaking, because I was kind of the ambassador for the RNC in some ways for Reince. And I'd go in and I'd stand up and I'd say, I'm Matt Pinnell and I'm from Oklahoma. And that's how I started every one of my speeches. And usually, I tell the story often. Usually, there's 1 or 2 people. There's a snicker, in the back of the room. But the fascinating part was, and this is a good thing. Good news is coming. When people would come up to me after, they would tell me what's in Oklahoma. So it wasn't necessarily that we have a negative brand. It's that we have no brand whatsoever, which is actually a beautiful place for me to be.
It's a better place than being having to dispel a bunch of...
Yes, and listen, every state, has some negative headlines and has a perception, and I would say that, yes, we have to change some things on the perception side. But it's great, as the Secretary of Tourism and Branding, we are putting a brand together in Oklahoma, basically starting from scratch. And that puts me in a much better place to succeed with putting a brand together. So we're very excited about putting this rebrand together. Every agency has their own logo. So inside state government, we're going to have a uniform brand as well, so that these agencies feel like they're playing on the same team. Because what we've what you have right now in Oklahoma is every agency has their own logo and their own slogan. Is that a small thing? It's really not when you really think about it, because all of these agencies think that they do their own thing and they're not part of the team, the Oklahoma team. So the rebrand inside the state government is going to be uniform, but we're gonna bring this to a statewide level. And I like to certainly look at what other states are doing, best practices, Colorado and Tennessee are two states that we've really kind of honed in on, and really Colorado. They actually just launched another new logo, and it's not all about logo.
Sure.
But
that matters.
But it does matter, and birthed out of that. I mean, again, you go to Colorado, everybody's got the hat, right, with their logo, and they're wearing the shirts, they're wearing the swag, and they're creating state pride. If you create state pride with high school kids, then they might choose to go to college in state. And then if they continue to develop that state pride, then they really, really want to stay home. So those are things that I'm looking at. As far as that sales pitch, I think we're going to discover when we go through this branding campaign just how diverse of a state we are,
Sure.
How creative we are. One of the things that people continue to bring up to me, which I think is, I didn't really think of it this way, but it's really true. You can really have it all in Oklahoma from the perspective of you can get involved in the community day one and make a difference. You can make a difference in Oklahoma. If you move to Dallas, and I don't know how many millions of people live in Dallas, but it's going to take a very long time for you to get involved with the Chamber of Commerce in Dallas. In Oklahoma, you can get involved day one because I think our people are nicer. They don't just pat you on the head and say you're up to bat next. No, you're up to bat now. We need you involved in the community now. And I hear that a lot from millennials. I hear it from different generations that you can get involved in Oklahoma and make a difference versus a lot of other cities and states where that's just not realistic.
Right. I mean, I think even on the civic level, right? I mean, the fact that you're sitting here with us today in a coffee, in a donut shop in Guthrie is because 3 years ago some of us were like, we should do something. We should fix this, and so we started going to the Capitol. And what I learned was that you don't have to be someone important or special. You have to be an Oklahoman because there's not many of us, and of the 4 million Oklahomans, not many folks do anything, and so. Yeah. Just from going to the Capitol, and the legislators will give you their cell phone.
Yes.
You can tweet at the lieutenant governor, and he'll have a donut with you. These are.
Yeah.
It's not that hard, and that means that we all have way more power and influence than I think we are aware of. And to the extent we can use that to make our state better within our boundaries, and then look for ways to bring outside investment and other people in, I think is a powerful message that I hope more people start to learn.
Yes.
When you talk about Colorado and they wear the logo and they've got the patches, you're right. I think that's a great goal to aspire to. What kind of investment, both monetary and non-monetary, do you think it will take for the people who work specifically? And I know we've talked a lot about private sector jobs, and rightly so. But what kind of investment does it take in our public employees so that they want to wear the patch, right? They want to wear the hat. They want to say, yeah, you know what? I work for the Oklahoma State Department of X.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm proud to do that because it's a great job and we do great work for the people of Oklahoma.
It's swag.
Right?
It's like I can't stop my employees from wearing Tower Theater related stuff.
Right.
Well, even,
you know what I mean? And I think that we have a tendency, and there's a whole lot of reasons, and it goes back to our founding. We are a state that I think no matter what side of the aisle you fall on, we tend to have some skepticism of government. That's why our Constitution's written the way it is. But how do we maybe counter that and say, no, you should be proud to work for the state tourism department or the ag department or whatever? So
a couple really, things that we've been pretty proud of getting when we got elected into these positions. The governor will tell stories. One of the first times, he visited the Department of Education as a sitting governor. There hasn't been a governor that has visited the Department of Education. Sure. I think he was saying since the 90s.
Crazy.
He's just going up to people and saying, hey, I'm Kevin Stitt, I'm one of your coworkers. So
pretty solid.
That changes the perception and morale with government employees pretty quick. We have surveys that we're creating for all government agencies and for employees inside state government, so they can tell us what they're mad about and again what they support. Same thing we're doing in the Department of Tourism. There's over 700 employees in the Department of Tourism. A lot of them out across our state at all of our great state parks and other places that we have around the state. But it's just making phone calls to them. They've been fairly paralyzed to make decisions and to get outside boxes because of leadership in different agencies. And so we're hoping that if we fix some of those things and the morale does change to some degree inside of state government. We're also well aware that all of these agencies have been cut unfairly in most of them. And so that, salaries do matter, yes. And we're taking a look at that too. And hopefully we'll be able, moving forward, to help a lot of those agencies that have gotten 20, 30, 40% cuts to get them at a proper level of funding so that, certainly I have no doubt that would help morale as well.
I think I grew up in Texas. I literally have Texas tattooed on my arm as my pride from there, although I'm going to start in Oklahoma next, right?
Yes.
And I think when I grew up being indoctrinated into all the wonderful things about the state of Texas, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yes,
my whole family going back generations. And I think Colorado has that too, that they've got mountains, and California's got mountains and trees and oceans, and everything's got their thing. And I think kind of what I hear you saying is that Oklahomans have to learn that it's cool to be from Oklahoma, and we kind of need to be re-educated or exposed to what we really do have to offer, so that we know how to tout that. Because right now, for the last decade, especially, the things we have to tout are like really high syphilis rates and stuff like that.
Yeah. So you really nailed it, because I think, and again, because we really don't have a brand, we can start from scratch on this.
Right.
We're not arguing that we're something different than what we've been telling people.
Right.
But it better not be the Twitter bird on our license plate.
Right.
It better not be Oklahoma is okay.
Right.
But those are the brands that we have right now.
Yeah.
And I crossed over in Arkansas over spring break, and there were 3 minivans pulled over taking selfies in front of the Welcome to Arkansas sign.
Right.
And the Welcome to Oklahoma sign, you can see it on the other side of the street. And it's faded. It looks like it's about to fall down. And there was nobody pulling over taking a selfie in front of the Welcome to Oklahoma sign. Is that a small thing? I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, this is the crossroads of America.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that pass through our state every day. Let's give them a good perception of the state as they're driving through.
That's something I've been talking a lot about lately, is that, and why people that I talk to are excited about the idea that we have a Secretary of Tourism and Branding, is that Oklahoma doesn't tell its own story, or hasn't. Other people have started to tell, when they came out and said that None Such is the best new restaurant in America, well, all of us in Oklahoma City, it's been around for 5 years. Yeah, of course we know. We know this.
Right.
It's
and yes, you're right.
But then you're also wait, we just never told anybody.
Yeah.
Right.
Or we're top 10 places for small businesses to start. Yeah, we know that. I know dozens of people who are starting businesses left and right. And we have this interior culture of I've told people this, I want to do something, I have this idea about this business. Go do that. It sounds stupid and weird. Yeah. But whatever, I guarantee you 1,000 people will support you tomorrow when they find out.
There's a great company in Stillwater that had launched a brand, Okla America, that I've promoted a little bit. And I think they're tapping into something, and it kind of goes to your point, this pioneer spirit that we have. When Texas, you go in, they have in the Buc-ee's in Texas, they have the pride in the South. It shows all the states. Oklahoma's not there. And then when you go into Iowa and they show all the Midwest states, they show all these Midwest states and then Oklahoma again. So we're this is the crossroads of America, but we don't really we're not in the Midwest, we're not in the South. We're Oklahoma. We're Okla America. Right. And I think he's kind of tapped into some of that state pride, that we are the most unique state probably in the entire country. Right. No other state can match our history and our heritage. And I think it is something that we need to make sure that we do a better job of boasting about, and it needs to be part of our brand.
Well, you can't match our environmental diversity.
Yes.
Yeah. You can't, and these are the selling points that bring things like the film industry. These are the selling points that bring things like all of these other industries that we're just not telling.
We're not 12 ecosystems, for goodness sakes, in the state. Yeah.
I tell you what, the drive from Woodward to Enid, from Enid to I-35 is less exciting. But Woodward to Enid is I drove it a couple of years ago, and it's to me the most beautiful part of the state.
Yeah.
The Southeast is great too, but I love that kind of Western step
you can do it all and have it all right here in Oklahoma. Yeah.
Several years ago, I used to do PR. Not full time, but more of the time. And if anyone from the Made in Oklahoma Coalition is listening, this
Yes.
is a free advice.
Yes.
It's a critique, but it's free advice. That,
I'll pass it along. I know them well.
yeah, that I think they had kind of a call out for a new PR company, and some of us had kind of put in a pitch that everyone knows MIO, but we know them as like Bar S Hot Dogs and Shawnee Mills, and that's about it. And I was like, but there are so many things that are made here.
So many.
Like, why don't you have every brewery in the state? Like, there is so much stuff. And I saw one of their they've got a new design out now. I saw it on a truck the other day, and I was like, closer, but it was still like hot dogs and like cornmeal, and I was like, but has a huge potential there, and I think those kinds of things for people to know what all is here.
We have one of the best craft brewery scenes in the entire country.
Yes.
Entire country today. And so I'd rather be talking about craft brewery than hot dogs.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Put that on a license plate.
Yeah. Well, same thing with coffee shops and caffeine, I think. And what I've joked is that Oklahoma, maybe Oklahoma City in particular, but Oklahoma as a whole, we all want to go to, like, we want Seattle's coffee scene, we want San Antonio's Riverwalk, we want all these things. Many of us can't afford to go move there on our own, so we just recreate it here, which is great, because then we get that here, and if that's all you do, and you can be a big fish in a small pond, then you can do it really well, really quickly.
But I also think we have to make sure the things that are unique and cultural relevant to Oklahoma, like the stockyards in Oklahoma City, I mean, that is a gem. That is a gem that we should be even more heavily investing in. And you mentioned the Woodward and, the Great Salt Plains area.
Yeah.
I mean, those are areas that we have to make sure that they are better. And inside state government, that is my responsibility. All of our state parks, which is a whole other podcast that we could do down the road. Right. So the bones that we have here, the things that we already do, Route 66, for goodness sakes, we've got to make sure that we're putting investment dollars in those things.
Yeah, like Route 66 is an automatic tourist thing because they're already driving it. Right? It's just have to stop them here.
That's right.
You're saying they're driving through, they're like, oh yeah, this is Oklahoma. Okay, just keep going.
Yeah,
right.
More
Versus
miles of the most famous road in the entire country, right here in Oklahoma.
Right.
I mean, we have more miles than any other state of Route 66.
And we've got a few pieces, like there's like the museum and a few things that are great, and then we just need to connect the literal dots.
From Sayre to Miami. Yeah.
I think
It was right down my doorstep.
this is kind of starting to hit on something we had kind of talked about, kind of things we wanted to talk about yesterday. There's been, and still is, I think, at least a perception, and sometimes it's true, like that there's the rural part of the state and then there's the urban part of the state, right? There's the rural communities and the urban communities. And certainly I think a lot of our urban and suburban communities, like we mentioned, have seen a real kind of resurgence. Some rural communities maybe have seen that, right? Some haven't. We're all Oklahomans, right? What do you kind of see? How do we communicate with people in a way that shows that, whether you live in Woodward or Guymon, or whether you live in Oklahoma City or Tulsa, our interests actually are aligned, and like that we're all in this together. How do we work for both communities? Yeah,
we have to. If we can figure out in Oklahoma that secret sauce to get rural and urban Oklahoma working together, I don't think anything can stop us. Nothing can stop us if we can figure that out. I think some of that's through the brand. That, again, this uniform branding, again, that's one Oklahoma, not rural Oklahoma, urban Oklahoma, Republican, Democrat, that we're one Oklahoma. I think that's going to help. I also think communities working together. Oklahoma City should be working with Luther, Oklahoma, because agritourism is the fastest growing cottage industry inside the tourism department as a whole. So go do the urban water park, which is one of the more unique tourist attractions in the entire country. There's nothing like it.
Sure.
And then 30 minutes away, you have a farm-to-table experience in Luther, Oklahoma, in a cute Main Street USA town that everybody wants these days. You can do that in a day. There's nowhere else in the entire country where you can do that. And so you have to have Oklahoma City and Luther's communities working together to where Oklahoma City's not stealing business, Luther's not stealing. We're working together to maximize that benefit. We mentioned Route 66. Everything off that road, an hour or two that spokes off of Route 66 should be in play. But we don't do a great job of connecting those communities because most of the time it's an urban community and a rural community, and they're butting heads. And that's going to take some leadership at the top to make sure that, hey, those days are over. We've got to work together on these things moving forward.
This is a very niche thing, but I just had this idea of what if there was a piece of, we talked about swag and people wearing shirts and all this. What if there was a piece of swag with this new brand you could only get if you were a resident of Oklahoma for like a period of time. Like that way you see that lapel pin or that T-shirt out, you're like, or if you see it and you're in Seattle, like, hey,
yes,
you immediately have that, because that's the thing. I'll travel all over the place and I always see an Oklahoma license plate, or I always run into somebody that I know, which is like, how the heck am I running into you in Bentonville?
Right. Or like when I ran into Blake Jarlam's like aunt on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in DC, and she's like, "Oh, my nephew's in Oklahoma City," and I said, "He runs a brewery thing," and I was like, "Who? Coop?" I was like, "Blake? Yeah." I was like, "Oh, I went to go to church together. Like, what are the odds? Let's take a selfie." You know?
Right.
We had some friends that were took an anniversary trip recently to Hawaii. So they're at like this resort in Hawaii, and they had an issue with the airline. Like their bags got, so they'd been there like 36 hours, and like still were waiting on their bags. And this couple like overheard them talking and talked to them. Where are you from? They're both from Oklahoma. And this couple was leaving the next day and was like, "Oh, here," like left them clothes and was like,
"That's cool.
We'll just here
Oklahoma.
Take these. You have some stuff. We'll get them from you when you get home."
Yeah.
Like I was like, that is like the best and most Oklahoma story I think I've ever heard.
Yeah, and we should take a lot of pride in it.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, you and I have talked about the idea of some kind of like integrated app, right? So if you say, "I'm going to go to the downtown water park thing at, like, I'm planning an itinerary for like 10 o'clock on Saturday," then it shows you everything else that is available like before and after that, right?
That's
so it's
great.
like, oh, well, hey, a little small town experience. Like, let's do that. And you can like build your itinerary for a trip.
Yeah.
I think that's a great example.
And listen, I'll give a plug for the Travel OK app. I think it's a pretty intuitive app. I mean, they did a really good job with it. I think every Oklahoman should download that app because you can build itineraries on that pretty easily. It's very clean, easy to use. So, those listening, download that app. It really works.
There's actually a small initiative of this going on in Oklahoma City right now. But the thing I think that's really brilliant about what's happening is it's using an outside platform. It's a platform that's actually based out of Seattle, but it's a company that was started by people in Oklahoma. But they're in Seattle, and what they're doing is there's a ticketing platform for all of the major Seattle attractions. If you're going to the Space Needle, you're buying a ticket on the platform. If you're going to this museum, you're buying a ticket on the platform. And it's an integrated platform. So when I'm at the Space Needle and I buy my ticket, they can say, "Well, if you'd like, I can sell you a 3-pack, and you can go to the museum, and you can go to the thing."
Love that. Yeah.
And so there's actually a group in Oklahoma City right now that's brought this company back and said, "We want to do it." So everything from River Sport to the Museum of Art to the Overholser Mansion to the water taxis.
Excellent.
Like they're all getting together to try to get onto this same platform.
Yeah.
And then they're just helping each other. It's like,
we've got to do that.
You're at the water taxi at 10 a.m. He's like, "Cool, well, you'll be done here by 10:45, and at 11:30 there's a tour at the Overholser Mansion."
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, the streetcar will take you to 13th and Robinson, where you can pick up a Spokies and pop, that sort of mentality of like, I can tell you how to go experience. Now, great, that's obviously great for Oklahoma City, but that mentality to expand it out.
Yeah, those package deals. If you're in Tulsa, let me tell you about the Pioneer Woman in Pawhuska. Yeah. And then if you're in Pawhuska, let me tell you about Bartlesville and Ponca City. Right. So inside the tourism department, we've got to make sure that we're dedicating some dollars to making sure that we're talking about those package deals, what you can do on a 3-day weekend. You can hit it all in Oklahoma on a 3-day weekend. You can't do that in Texas.
Sure. That's true.
But you can do that in Oklahoma.
You can barely see Austin on a 3-day weekend.
Yeah, that's true.
Can you talk about your photo contest?
Yeah,
How many are you up to now?
So it was the month of March. We just tweeted out, "Hey, use the hashtag #OKTravelTakeover. Show me all your great photos, how great Oklahoma is." We really had no idea what the response would be. We had like over 20,000 entries. We're going to pick 20 to 25, and we don't know how we're going to pick 20 to 25, but we're going to pick them. We're going to frame them. We're going to display them out in the rotunda, and then they're going to hang in the lieutenant governor's office. Yeah. But I think it's one more example of when we provide opportunities for people in Oklahoma to show their Oklahoma pride, they'll show it. But you got to have statewide elected officials that are thinking about these things. And again, I think that's why, I give Governor Stigg credit. He realized the brand mattered, so he doubled down on it. He said, "Hey, I'm going to name you Secretary of Tourism and Branding." I don't think there's another cabinet secretary in the country that has that title. So we're going to make sure that we stay pretty dedicated to those things. But yes, the contest was just the month of March, so I apologize. You guys can't submit photos. This would be a great photo right here.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, when we first sat down here, we all had our donut plates and our coffee, and it was just so perfect and home towny that it's like,
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, it
Got
was.
fans everywhere. Huh?
Yeah, yelling at people.
Yeah.
People can still go through a Twitter though, and they can search for that hashtag.
Oh,
and look at something.
please do that.
I mean, I've gone through a couple times. There are some truly. I don't know how you're going to pick 25.
I know.
There are hundreds and hundreds of just phenomenal pictures
Yeah,
from all over the state.
it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
I meant to submit a few and I forgot.
I think I did one on the first day and then forgot
Yeah.
about it. Well, Lieutenant Governor, I appreciate your time this morning. I know you've got to get down for another engagement
do.
here soon. But thanks for taking time. Thanks for speaking with us, and we hope to do it again soon.
Absolutely. Anytime you guys want to get some donuts in the morning in Guthrie, I'm there.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you, sir.